Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm Ron McKeefery, and this week we are sitting down and talking with Sydney University's Tim Leahey. He's the Director of Strength and Conditioning down there at Sydney and works specifically with the rugby program, very successful program in Australia. I got the chance to meet Tim. He came through and visited with us for a day, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And in this, we're going to talk quite a bit about training rugby. As you all know, rugby is one of the largest, the fastest growing sports in the world. With the addition of rugby sevens in the Olympics, it is getting a lot of notoriety lately. And Tim sits down and talks to us a little bit about how he trains his players, as well as a lot of things he's got going on down in Sydney. So sit back and enjoy the interview. All right, guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm here with Tim Leahey. He's the head strength coach for the University of Sydney down in Australia, specifically works with their rugby program down there. And I got to know him. He visited the United States a while back and came through Tennessee and spent the day with us. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and I know you guys will get it, will enjoy it as well. So, Tim, thanks for being on the show, man.
Ron, a pleasure to be here.
Obviously, for the people that don't know you, tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into strength and conditioning, and then a little bit of the success, because obviously in the United States we're not as familiar with the rugby program, but you're working with one of the top programs in the world.
Yeah, that's right, Ron. So I've been very lucky, actually, very fortunate. I did my undergraduate degree and did some work experience at Sydney University Football Club in 2004, and it sort of stemmed on from there. I did some voluntary work in 2005, and I rolled into a full-time position in 2007, and I've been there ever since. So I've been very fortunate, but it's also a very, very, very good program, Sydney University Football Club. We've been very lucky to be, I guess, at the forefront of having very good players, but having very good staff around us and very good systems. So we've very much used the US model in many respects with how we've had athletes come in and study, and how we've trained as well. So it's a unique model that's now being sort of trying to be replicated all around the Australian landscape.
How did you get into strength and conditioning in the first place? What was it that made you want to be a strength coach?
The thing that probably got me into it, Ron, was I had a couple of very good lecturers. I had a guy by the name of Kyle Tarpenning, a Canadian guy that I used to go and talk physiology with when I was in my first and second year of uni. He's now passed, which is quite sad. And then there was a guy by the name of Steve Bird, who I helped with his PhD in 2002-03. And from there, I sort of started to really get an idea that this was the industry I wanted to go into. And when you're passionate about something, it's easy, isn't it? You just sort of put your head down and keep working towards it. So I find I'm still growing. I'm still young, but I'm trying to be, trying to gain as much knowledge as I can in the industry.
No question. Well, one of the things I found fascinating when you came over, we talked quite a bit about your master's program at Edith Cowan. Tell us a little bit about that program.
So for the US connection, that probably would be connected to Dr. Greg Haff. He now heads the program up at Edith Cowan in Western Australia. It's an online program that, if you study full time, will take you 18 months. I did it part time, so it took me 3 years. But it's the best part of the course is it's all directed towards whatever your industry is. So whatever code you're in, whether you're in a football code, a hockey code, you can really apply anything that you learn back into the practical application of what you're doing in the workplace. So you do 8 subjects, and then the last subject's a practicum. So you go over for 2 weeks, and they pull keynote speakers from all over the world to speak for the 2-week period. It's hands-on, it's outstanding, and it's a really good way to meet people as well. So it's like having your ASCA or NSCA conference, but you have it for a 2-week period. So, I still keep in contact with a lot of the guys that I've met from that course, and, sharing ideas and sharing knowledge, which is really good.
Now, that's something that you don't have to be an Australian to go to. That could be anywhere in the world, correct?
That's right, Ryan. So there's a lot of international guys at the conference. So there's a lot of European guys, some US guys. I think there was about 50 guys and some girls that turned up for the practicum that I went to at the end of 2011. And it's growing every year. I'm pretty sure I was talking to Dr. Greg Haff at our ASCA conference, and they're running two practicums that's becoming so popular because of the interest from international people.
Wow, it's a neat deal all the way around. Tell us a little bit about, obviously the university model from a strength and conditioning standpoint is quite a bit different than the States. At Tennessee, I had 12 assistants. Talk to us a little bit about your staff and how it's set up in Australia.
Yeah, so I guess I come under the banner of Sydney University Sport and Fitness. So there's about 350 to 400 scholarship holders across 28 to 30 different sports that we have time with. In terms of our S&C department, we've got three full-time guys. We've got a program that started from Bath University, an exchange program where we have two guys come out full-time for 10 months that we've organised, and they're two great guys that have really added to our program. So they're with us full-time as well. And then we have some consultants that come in as well. So we've got three consultants that work part-time for us, and then we have 3 local interns from Sydney University that help us out anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a week as well. So we've got a little bit of everything going on, but it seems to work really well. Like anywhere, we could have more staff, no doubt about it. But I think at the moment it's working pretty well. So our rugby program, for example, it's into about its 14th or 15th week of pre-season. So it's been quite a long pre-season. We've had anywhere between 80 to 100 players in that pre-season. So I'd say it's very similar to what you guys do with your football program.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, what you mentioned those specialists or those consultants, is that a speed consultant, a nutritionist, is that purely a strength coach? Yeah,
we've got that's just strength coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, and then we have an expert dietitian comes in and does a few hours a week, sports psychologists and then obviously our academic counsellors for our students as well. So to help them get through their grades and get their degrees.
So you'll cover all 20 plus sports with that staff then?
Yeah, we try to. So we have a lot of these sports. So a lot of our athletes could be anywhere in the world or in the country. So a lot of these guys will be satellite athletes. So they'll be training at other venues but still reporting back to us. Or they might be a scholarship holder with Sydney Uni but train at, say, the New South Wales Institute of Sport or somewhere else. So out of that 350, if I was to be honest, we're probably seeing half of those guys full on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, specifically with rugby, obviously that's one of the premier programs that you work with. What are some unique challenges to working with the rugby player versus as well as the rugby calendar? Is it a year-round program? Is it, how do you set things up?
So I'll just fill you in. So our season will run we'll start trials. We'll start some sevens rugby, which is obviously quite popular in America. We'll start that in late February. And we'll roll into some trials in March, and then our first round will be normally the first weekend of April. This year we finish in September. I think if we're good enough, we'll be there on the 14th of September. And then obviously we try to give some guys some downtime for a month or 6 weeks, and then we're really right back into it towards the end of October. And the guys are pretty much full on in a pre-season from October through to the end of February until we start to get into our in-season period. Some of the challenges we have is being quite a successful program, we lose a lot of our players. So we're at a clubland. We're at clubland. So Sydney University is at the club level, and then at the Super Rugby level, we have 5 different provinces. Now, we'd have the best part of 25 to 30 guys involved in those provinces. So throughout the course of the year, if they're not playing for the Wallabies, they'll filter back to us as well. So there's a big responsibility on us to fast track and develop these guys as quickly as we can. So, we're very young. We're 18 to 22 max in our squad in terms of age. So we've really got to fast track guys physically to be ready to play at a senior level of rugby. Yeah. So we're really, really big on our S&C focus and benchmarking guys to be, athletically strong enough to compete.
And you mentioned club. Just kind of go through the levels real quick so everybody understands. You're at the club level, university level.
So I'm at the club and university level. Above that is Super Rugby level. So they play against South African and New Zealand sides, and then you go to a national level.
Gotcha.
So we filter our players into that Super Rugby standard.
And where does professional fit into that then? Like AFL?
Super Rugby is professional, yeah.
I got you. So when you're designing a program for a rugby player from a philosophical standpoint, just kind of give us the big picture as to what are the key components that you're trying to train for.
So I think we're all about it. Doesn't matter what sport you're in, you got to have multi capacities, don't you? So we do try to do a physiological overview when we test kids, and make sure we're trying to train all of those components together. So we like to use a conjugate model. Some people may call it a bit of a blender effect, but we have a lot of time on field. So we'll have 2 or 3 sessions on field. We've got to train strength. We've got to train speed. We've got to be fit. So a lot of our guys run a lot. We run a lot. We do a lot of off-feet conditioning. It's about trying to train every capacity as much as we can at the same time. But saying that, if a kid's young and he's not big enough, he's got to spend more time doing hypertrophy. He's got to spend more time getting bigger.
Sure.
I'm a big believer in probably the white elephant in any sport is body fat. So we work pretty hard on having powder weight. So it's a big thing that we strive for within our program.
So you mentioned the testing that you do. Obviously body composition. Are you using DEXA? Are you using Bod Pod? What are you doing to evaluate body fat? As well as what are some of the other tests that you use to evaluate your players?
Yeah, so obviously your NFL combine stuff's pretty unanimous everywhere around the world. So we use some of those statistics to actually benchmark where our guys are at. So from a strength perspective, we'll use a 3 to 5 RM rep range, depending on how talented the kid is athletically. For their strength, bench pull, and squat, and deadlift. So we'll look at those 4 key lifts. In terms of body fat, we're looking at just a skin fold number for a sum of 7. Our speed will be over 10, 20, and 40 metres. Our big guys will only run over 10 and 20. So our big guys being our tight forwards. Sure. The rest of the guys, our back rowers and backs, will run over 10 to 40 metres. We'll grab a speed number out of them. Measuring vertical jump as well. We're pretty big on looking at our VJs. We've got hopefully a force plate coming within the next month or 6 weeks. We'll start using that a little bit more as well. Sure. So we keep it pretty simple, and then we spend a lot of time getting our physios to map out where guys are at from a what we call a little rock perspective or a prehab perspective, and then obviously we look at dietetics as well, so how well they're tracking with their diet. So pretty simple stuff, but from there we try to use that as our fundamental basis to where we drive guys athletically.
The last time we talked quite a bit about technology and how you've incorporated that into your program. Talk a little bit about what, be it GPS or heart rate data, or what are some of the things that you use with your program?
Yeah, so we've used some GPS over the time, and we're just looking at possibly getting into looking at some catapult units. GPS data is fantastic. I think the biggest thing you can learn from GPS data is a couple of things. In our training, how many meters we run per minute, and then compare that to how many meters we run per minute in a game. So we can really look straight away at the intensity of training compared to the intensity of the game. From there, I think one of the other big components of what GPS does is it can measure eccentric loads. So you can measure mechanical load, measure eccentric load. I know the New South Wales Waratahs are big on measuring mechanical loading of their training to see how much change direction there is and how taxing that session is on the player. Right. I think from a skill perspective, we talk to our coaches about, okay, this is how fast we're running in a game, 80 or 100 metres per minute. We need to do that in a skill environment to see if we can execute our skill under that sort of speed and fatigue, and then what sort of mistakes we make or what efficiency we have. And hopefully that will then transfer into the game. So I'd say that's probably a snapshot overview of how I see GPS working best for, say, a rugby program.
Sure. Now, you say you're in the last couple of weeks of the preseason or the off-season program. What does a typical week look like? Is it 3 days a week of training? Is it 5 days a week? How do you structure your week? Okay,
so most of our kids are not getting paid. They're not getting paid at all. So they're here. They're having to work super hard to fund themselves to live in Sydney. Sydney's now the 3rd most expensive city to live in the world. It's not a cheap place to be. So we have to train either early in the morning or late at night, or after hours. So at the moment, our schedule will look like So like a dynamic lower body session and speed on a Monday evening. Tuesday will be on field and some upper body. Wednesday will be extras, so speed. This is off their own back. They'll come and do speed extras, conditioning extras, Pilates, rehab, whatever they need to do to be better. Thursday will mirror Tuesday as another field session. Friday will be our heaviest lift of the week with some off-feet conditioning at the back end of it. Saturday mornings normally our injured guys and our work capacity guys. They come in and do some extras on a Saturday morning. So that's the bare minimum we ask our players to do in a pre-season.
Sure. We're, another thing that we talked about was that you're kind of a lifelong learner like me. You always are looking for a way to improve your program. In fact, that's how we met. You came to the United States, and instead of just sitting around because it was on a vacation, basically, you came and spent the day in a weight room all day long. What are some of the places that you go to learn? How do you stay cutting edge?
I'd say probably I've spent a large proportion of my last 3 or 4 years studying and reading literature. So being involved with Edith Cowan doing that master's program, it forces you to read current literature. I think it's a really big thing. So reading current literature, talking about it, we try to catch up as a staff and talk something towards, once a week with the young interns I have from the UK. We try to catch up once a week and have a topic of discussion that we speak about. You try to stay in touch with people within your industry, visit other rugby programs within Australia. I spent some time down in Melbourne before Christmas. We have, I think, probably 7 or 8 of our players down there, so going and having a look at the systems that they use and the schedules that they keep and what they're looking out for in terms of measuring load, fatigue, simple stuff like that. I take a fair few swimmers, so I've spent some time with our Institute of Sport here in New South Wales and Sydney, talking about how they train swimmers. They've got some of the swimmers there won gold medals at the last Olympics, so you've got to keep learning. They've got some good ideas. And then, our national conference is very good this year. I thought it was outstanding. Every year at the Gold Coast, they seem to be able to drag between 400 and 500 people for a weekend and have some really good keynote speakers. So, and I think, it's so easy to get online now, read blogs and, read the stuff that you're doing. You're trying to improve the industry one conversation at a time. I love that.
That's good. That's right. Well, that's a good segue. We've talked and we're working on putting on a clinic in October that's going to be a football, rugby, strength and conditioning clinic in Sydney. And, there's going to be more details to come. We'll keep everybody abreast of that. But we're really excited about that. Go ahead and talk from your side, your perspective as to that clinic.
Yeah, Ron, it was a brainchild of ours when we were over there. We'd only met for a day and we were talking about, different things that how to improve the industry. That was probably the topic of our conversation. And we came up with the idea of why don't we try to run something down here in Sydney. And I think there's definitely a hole for running something of an elite calibre at Sydney Uni where we can gather 2 or 3 of the best football strength coaches that you can find in the States. And I'll try to find the same equivalent in multi-codes here in Australia. So I'd like to get someone from Australian Rules Football, someone from Rugby League, and then possibly myself to speak for a weekend or for a day in Sydney. So we do some theory and then hopefully get out of the park and in the gym and do some practical stuff as well. I think it's got a lot of merit. There's so many school-level coaches and I guess amateur guys and as well as professional organisations that want to hear different people's perspective of how they train, how they prepare, and how to do things better.
No question. No question. I think it's a great idea, and looking forward to it tremendously. You've got a million things going on. We're talking off camera a little bit. Tell everybody a little bit about some of the things you got going on, and then what are some ways they can contact you if they have any questions specifically for you.
Yeah, no worries, Ron. So I've got a little bit of stuff going on. A colleague and I have started doing a little bit of stuff with Red Bull here in Australia. So Red Bull sponsor extreme athletes. So motocross riders, skiers, surfers, and 4 or 5 athletes at the moment are starting to do a little bit of stuff with us at Sydney University. So that's something that's only come up in the last couple of weeks that we've started doing, which is really good. So that's something I got on the loop, and I've got another another couple of guys. I can't mention their names at the moment, but we're in the process of putting together some ideas to set up a company as well. So looking at getting into a school level as well as an elite and sort of college sporting environment, as well as possibly some corporate stuff as well. So, we're really excited about where that's going to go. For anyone who wants to contact me, the best thing to do would be to send me an email. So my email is t.leahy, Leahy, @sport.usid.edu.au. If I can give you my card, give you my details, Ron, for anyone that would want to.
Sure. We'll make sure we link that up.
Yeah, link that up, yeah.
At the bottom in the show notes. But Tim, I know you share the same opinion that I do, that strength and conditioning is a global profession, and we can all learn from each other, whether it be rugby and football or swimming and rugby, like you had mentioned. And I think that's one of the areas in this profession that we got to get out of our comfort zone of just the sport that we work with, because the sooner that we can tap into all these disciplines and learn to apply these principles across multidisciplines, we're all gonna get better. So I appreciate you coming on today, and thanks a lot for doing that, man.
Thanks, Ron. I really appreciate having a chat to you, and I look forward to putting together our conference over the next 6 to 8 months, and really putting on a good show down here in Sydney for you guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Ron.
A couple quick announcements before we let you go. I'll make sure to link up all of Tim's information down below as well. We will also keep you up to date on my website of the rugby, football, strength and conditioning clinic that we're going to be putting on down in Sydney in October. It's going to be a great event. 3 football strength coaches talking about winter, summer, in-season training, rugby. 3 rugby strength coaches doing the opposite. So if we're talking in-season football, we're doing in-season rugby, and we're being able to compare the two. And I think we're really going to get something out of that. I'll make sure to keep you up to date. Now, strength coach basic training. If you are overseas and you are looking to do an internship in the United States, sometimes that's not in the cards for you. Sometimes you cannot afford to do that or get a work visa or anything along those lines. And so I set up strength coach basic training as a way to basically get the internship experience, at least the knowledge part of it, the book part of it, from a distance. And so what it is, it's the same lecture series that I would give our interns. Our internship program has done very well through the years, placing strength coaches. And it's basically a series of lectures that help you navigate the profession. What are some of the things that you need to have? What are the things you need to be thinking about right now? And how to go about doing those in the most cost-effective, efficient way. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go to www.strengthcoachbasictraining.com, and we'll catch you next time here on the Iron Game Chalk Talk.